Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thank you, everyone who's joining on Zoom and joining in person. Tonight is sponsored by two anonymous people for Refuah Shlema for Rafal Menachem ben Shterna Sarah and Hanania ben Chaya Mushka for complete Refuah Shlema for both of them. And welcome, Sheli.
Hi.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Sheli has been a very close friend to Living Chassidus and to Michal for a very long time. And you have graced us with so much wisdom, and you were with us through so much. So thank you so much for being here. Can you please share a little bit about yourself and share about your fundraiser?
Yes, for sure.
All right.
Hi,
thank
everyone. You. Oh, we have more people coming in. Amazing. Okay, I'm going to try to clip this. Yeah, I think so. Wait, maybe I'll put it in the middle. Okay. So hi, everyone. It's so nice to be here. I'm going to put tzedakah. Tzedakah mekarevet et geula. And we should all give tzedakah as much as we can. And Be'ezrat Hashem, we'll be in Yerushalayim soon, in Beit HaMikdash. I'm putting it here if anybody wants to put. Okay, so we won't waste any time. My name is Sheli. I love speaking for Living Chassidus. It's a very friendly place. Feels like coming back home. And I run a company called Chabad Learning Foundation. And me and some of my friends who help me, we run programs for kids to spread Jewish education. And I go to parks, I go to senior centers, I get to all kinds of interesting places. And Hashem and the Rebbe, they merit me to come across so many different situations. And throughout the years, it became a very big operation where I just go around to many different places and do programs for kids and help preschools. And right now I'm also running a little fundraiser. So if anybody wants to help, I will share our link later, maybe through Living Chassidus. And that's it. So let's start. We are, when I spoke to Michal, what we're going to talk about today. So we were thinking because it's Chof Cheshvan, and we're going to get into such a special day of the Rebbe Rashab's birthday, the 5th Lubavitcher Rebbe, we decided that we are going to pick a topic that is connected to the Rebbe Rashab and connected to us, and to try to tap into the energy of the day and to what the Rebbe Rashab represented, so we can learn from it, and so we can merit from that energy of that day and also enhance that quality in ourselves. So looking into the Rebbe Rashab's life and into his son's life, the 6th Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak of Lubavitch, a Frierdiker Rebbe, which I feel very connected to because I share a birthday with him, Yud Bet Tammuz, and I spend a lot of time reading his stories and reading his outtake on an outlook on education, since I deal with education, and I was always very impressed with the how firm the Frierdiker Rebbe was, how much he invested from himself into chinuch. It didn't matter if it made sense or didn't make sense financially. It mattered that Jewish children and Jewish people received proper Jewish education. And he didn't only put himself on the line for Jewish Chabad facilities. He put himself on the line for any Jewish facility that teaches Jewish education and spreads Torah and mitzvahs. And I always found that remarkable. And I live by his teachings. And then I said to myself, if we're talking about the Rebbe Rashab, where did the Frierdiker Rebbe receive all this knowledge and education, and what was he raised on? So he was raised in the house of the Rebbe Rashab. So it's a must to look into who the Rebbe Rashab was. What kind of household did the Frierdiker Rebbe grow up in that made him such a legend in our history in Chabad of Jewish education, and that the Rebbe continued that work and continues that work, and we continue that work, and I think that's remarkable. So I want to start with the story of the lamplighter. Some of you know it, some of you don't know it. And there's a lot of ways to look into that story. And the way the Rebbe Rashab described, the Frierdiker Rebbe refers to this story, and he said that he heard his father answering HaChassid, what is a chassid? And the Rebbe Rashab referred to it in a way that could be understood. So back then they had lamps in the streets, and there was a person going around and lighting the lamps. And the Rebbe Rashab answered the chassid that a chassid is somebody who is a lamplighter. So he tells him, so if you have to light in the street, then you light in the street. But what if you need to put light in the desert? So he said, so you go into the desert and you take your light and you light it in the desert. And he said, but what if it's in the water, in the ocean? So he says, okay, so take off your garments and go into the ocean. And then he tells him, but what if I don't see any lights? So he tells him, then you're not a lamplighter. So he said, so how do you become a lamplighter? He said, you have to do the work, you have to do the avoda. And then when you start doing the avoda on yourself, you start seeing the lights. And then the Rebbe refers to this story and analyzes it and explains it to us in a very deep manner. And when you understand the depth of the story, you understand the Rebbe Rashab and his Avat Yisrael, and that was really the way he lived his whole life. And what I loved about the Rebbe Rashab is that he worked on himself so much. He was a true example. He was so sensitive to make sure that everything that is required of a Jewish person and is connected to Hashem starts with him. And there's many stories that I'm going to share that emphasize that. But I'm going back to the lamplighter story, where the Rebbe says that a lamplighter, somebody who spreads light, needs to understand who they are spreading light to. You have to know who's in front of you. So when he refers to the desert, for example, it's somebody that doesn't have Torah, that doesn't have the mitzvahs, they're not even aware of it. It's so dry that you have to connect to that person in their way. It's very similar to the idea of chanoch et anar al pi darko. And in that place, he said, where you come to a person that's dry from all the knowledge of Torah and mitzvahs, then when you come with all your knowledge and you try to make an effort to introduce it to them, they will shy away, meaning they will allow you to do it because their godly neshama is going to connect to you. And then he says, in the water, what is the water? We know that water is Torah. So when somebody comes to someone who's already Torah knowledgeable and he knows everything, but he's still deciding not to observe and not to do. So in order to connect to that person, you have to take off your garments. You have to take off all this knowledge that you know, and you have to connect to them on a very basic level of soul to soul. And when you do that, they will listen to you. So meaning, if you want to help someone, if you want to light their godly soul, which is what being a lamplighter is, you have to know who's in front of you. You have to know who you're talking to. You have to do the work before you are influencing someone else. And if you read the stories and the biography of the Rebbe Rashab, you understand how deep this idea is in his life, how deep he worked on this with himself. And because he was so sensitive about it, everyone in his household, his wife and his son, everyone lived by that. And the Hasidim were being educated by those ideas. And this is profound because these are the ideas that the Frierdiker Rebbe approached chinuch through. And these are the ideas that our Rebbe continued and influenced us with. And it's very, very profound. Now, the Rebbe Rashab, from a very young age, opened a path for us that was not possible before. And there's two things that I noticed. One of the stories we hear about it a lot. Welcome. And another story that I'll refer to. We also know this story, but I wanted to point it out because that's the story that opens the path for Ahavat Yisrael for every one of us. To have that ability, like the Rebbe Rashab, to give from ourselves and to be able to see another person for what they are and what they need. So the first story that we hear about the Rebbe Rashab is that when they learn Parashat Vayera in school, and he comes home to his grandfather, the Tzemach Tzedek, and he cries. Says, why Avraham Avinu gets to see Hashem at age 99, and I don't get to see him. We don't get to see Hashem. And his grandfather tells him when a person has a bris milah at age 99, they deserve to see Hashem. The idea in the story is that a 4 or 5-year-old child is crying to see Hashem. Because this is not a regular child, and he is coming from such a special family, and his neshama is so special, the Rebbe Rashab opened a path for us that from a young age, children would want to see Hashem, would want godliness, would crave for godliness, and that would be their motivation. That they're not going to care about if you give them a candy or if you give them something or that they want to buy in the store, that their initial need would be for godliness. And because a 4 or 5-year-old child that's going to be the Rebbe cries for such a thing, this is a lesson for all of Am Yisrael, that all the children today have this internal need for godliness. And if you're aware of it as an educator and you're able to tap into that, so what's going to happen is that you'll be able to influence the child in a way that you will give them what they need. And what they need today is godliness. Plain, simple godliness, explaining to them about Hashem and Hashem's greatness and the Torah. And this is what they want from us. Whereas before this moment, children did need to get prizes and not like the Rambam says. But after that moment, there was a new path opened. I know, but this is something that really needs to be worked on. And if you try it, this is something we can really Farbrengen about when it comes to education. If you try it, kids today are truly motivated by the connection to Hashem, by just being.
Only if they're brought up that way. You can introduce it in 5th grade.
You can, but this is what, and you know why I'm bringing up, it's going to be hard, but if you truly work on it in your classroom, you will see results. People have tried it. Educators have tried it. I know that it sounds like a lofty idea.
People that do it, and then it works also in older grades, but you can't train a kid that everything they do, they get a prize, and then suddenly 5th grade. Oh, now
but you know, I tell you what, we are assuming
we cover up their inner.
We are assuming that they want the prize. We are getting them used to getting the prize. But if you
right, so I'm saying by the time they're used to it, there's not really a way to go back.
There is a way to go back, but it has to be there is a method to it. And if you want, we can really talk about this in another Farbrengen. We really could talk about it. There is something that I can introduce you to that you can read and see how to apply it. And it's something that I'm not just saying this. This is something that is going to be published also. So we'll introduce this idea. This is very, very important. This is why I wanted to bring it up. Because once the Rebbe speaks about this, and the Frierdiker Rebbe brought this story on purpose. There was a reason. The Frierdiker Rebbe didn't just bring up stories. He said stories about his father that were meaningful, that have an impact on our lives. And the reason that he emphasizes that his father was 4 or 5 years old when this happened was to show us that children that age are capable of understanding godliness. And this is what their motivation is, that they want to see Hashem. You know, Rabbi Goldstein shared a story in one of his talks to the women in 770. And he said that one night his grandchild was crying because in Shabbat Chazon, he didn't see the Beit HaMikdash. He was so upset about it. And he said, this is what I'm talking about, that children today have this need for godliness, and they don't care if you give them the candy or not. Of course, you have to, you know, if they're not taught that way, it might not be built up in them. But it's just like being a lamplighter. Once you start lighting that as an educator, as a teacher, then it's going to start to come out. Yes, for sure.
Like, I think I've heard this idea that the Rebbe said, like, don't try and prove that Hashem exists, because then you're like almost dulling the ability of like the natural imuna to develop. So it's like that's a comparison. Like, but giving them prizes, you're dulling that ability to be able to just want to connect to Hashem and not do mitzvah so that you get prizes.
True. And also bear in mind that when you're not convinced that this is true, the children sense it. And they will not, they sense everything. If you believe in what they could do, they will do it. When I come to children, I think I really look at them as capable of understanding. And I'm talking to them with the same respect I would talk to an adult. And of course, I bring it down to their level of understanding, but I respect them and I believe that they can understand it. And many times I myself was surprised, and I learned from the children that this is really amazing. They really sense when you believe in them.
But how do you do it?
What do you mean? How do you do? So basically is that when you're teaching them, you can tell them lofty stories. You can tell them things about.
How do you bring yourself to like believe that?
Just look at them as a real, like look at them as they're not just little children. Look at their neshama. I look at their neshama and said, like sometimes like a friend of mine says, oh, Sheli, this concept is too lofty. I said, no, the neshama of the child hears, and the neshama understands it. And they won't like, when you tell them something with full belief that they'll understand it, they won't tell you, no, I don't want to hear it or whatever. They will really listen to you. You have to work on yourself and look and ask yourself, how do you look at children? And if you feel that you don't respect them enough or don't believe in them enough, then you start working on that. If you want, I could give you a few tips. We could talk about it later and develop that a little bit, because there is a way to do that. Like I share with them, sometimes when I teach my Shabbos class, I share with them personal stories, and that's how I respect them. I trust them enough with my personal stories. So I tell them, this concept that we're talking about right now, when I was your age, I had a story about this and that. And they're like, really? And I say, yeah. And then they start to believe that I trust them with my stories. So in return, they are, and then they start sharing their stories. Or I tell them a concept. I said, do you have a story that you could tell me that is similar to this concept that we just spoke about? And even the little kid, the 3-year-olds, they want to share something, and they'll say a word or two, but they understand this concept that I trust what they have to say, that it's important for me. And that's how you build trust with children, when they sense that you have time for them, that their word matters to you. Like if you notice that even they had a haircut or they got a new shirt or things like that, they start trusting that you're noticing them. And that's how you can, then they'll hear you. You can influence them. Now, there was another very beautiful story. So that was one path that the Rebbe Rashab opened for us, this path of godliness for young children, that they can understand it and want it. Another path was for Ahavat Yisroel. And where did I find that? There was a very nice story that the Rebbe Rashab's mother, Rebbetzin Rivka, ordered a dress, and the tailor made the dress for her, and then it was ready, and he came to give it to her, and they were like looking at it, measuring it, and the Rebbe Rashab was very little, and the tailor had pieces of the garment in his pocket, and the Rebbe Rashab pulled it out, and the tailor was changing colors. He was so embarrassed, and he was telling her, look, I was going to give it back to you. I didn't mean to I was not giving it to you. And he was so embarrassed. And after the situation was over, Rebbetzin Rivka told the Rebbe Rashab, she said, Shalom Dovber, did you notice that the tailor was embarrassed? We are not allowed to embarrass another Jew. And first of all, if you think about it today, you're going to tell a child, did you notice that this person was embarrassed? What would they answer you? Think about it. Like, he was a very mature child also to understand that. And right away when she told him that, he started to cry hysterically, not just like cry a little bit, like hysterically. And he was so hurt that he hurt another Jew. It was very painful for him as a child. And the story is very, very deep. Now, Rebbe and Rivka forgot about it. And a few weeks later, he goes to his father and he tells him, Tati, what does a Jewish person need to do? Doesn't tell him himself. He tells him, what does a Jewish person need to do in order to do teshuvah if they embarrassed another Jew? And he tells him, do you want to tell me the story? And he says, no, I was just curious. I just want to know. And he talks to him about it. And later, the Rebbe Maharash tells his wife, Rebbe and Rivka, about the situation. And she realized that her son didn't tell his tati the real story, like why he wanted to know that. Now, bear in mind, for a few weeks, it bothered him. It wasn't just that he cried that minute. He thought about it. It bothered him. He didn't even go to his tati right away. He went to his father a few weeks later. Meaning this whole time, this little kid is bothered by this idea that he hurt another Jew and he's thinking about it. And he knows not to ask right away. After reading about the Rebbe Rashab so much, I can assume that he also was trying to do teshuvah with himself. And then his mother comes to him and says, Shalom Dover, why didn't you tell Tati the whole story? And he says, not enough that I hurt another Jew and I embarrassed him, I should also say Lashon Hara on him.
How old was he?
He was very little. I'm talking to you like about a very little kid. It didn't say his age, but they were saying that it was very little child, like very little. And I was thinking about this. So just like the Rebbe Rashab opened a path for us, for chinuch, for godliness, he opened a path for us to have the sensitivity for Ahavat Yisrael, to feel ourselves not hurting another Jew. And when we do, not to take it lightly, to think about it and to say, you know what? It's okay. We all make mistakes. I make mistakes. You make mistakes. We all make mistakes. But to recognize that we made a mistake, to think about it, to be in pain about it. The Rebbe Rashab opened that path for us. Because everything that happens to the Rebbeim, they are Rosh Bnei Israel. Rabbi is Rosh Bnei Israel. Whatever happens to the Rebbeim is a symbol for us to learn and a new path for the Jewish nation. And we have the ability to have that sensitivity of Ahavat Yisrael. When the children get along and I see that they help each other, it gives me such nachas. And I think to myself, imagine Hashem watching us when we have that sensitivity to each other. It brings Hashem so much nachas. This is how Mashiach is going to come. And this is why I wanted to concentrate today about Ahavat Yisrael and understanding it through the person that had it the most. The Rebbe Rashab was so sensitive from a very, very, very young age. And he opened that path for us. I truly recommend this book. It's a biography. They have them on older Rebbe. You know this book. Maybe some of our viewers don't know. It's a beautiful biography on the Rebbe Rashab, but they have that on every Rebbe. It's really, really worth reading. It has a lot of beautiful stories and a lot of lessons to learn from. So when you have the time and you're interested in learning about Ahavat Yisrael, you need to learn about the Rebbe Rashab. There's so much from him to learn. And I also realized that because, the story that we know about the Frierdiker Rebbe with the calf, with the little calf that he was put into jail when he was a little boy, it's also, amplifies this idea of Ahavat Yisrael. The Frierdiker Rebbe, the Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak, was raised in the home of the Rebbe Rashab, understanding the value of helping another Yid. So when the Frierdiker Rebbe was little, his father used to give him money for learning Mishnayos by heart. And what did he do with this money?
You help the people go and buy or sell their.
Yes, he made a gemach where people can lend money to buy stuff, to buy things in the market. And the whole story with the calf was that he lent money to someone to buy merchandise, and the person was blamed that he stole the calf, when really the little Yosef Yitzchak, he knew that he gave him the money, and he argued with the officer, and the officer put him in in jail. And then the Rebbe Rashab took him out, and there's a whole message there about chinuch and about the fact that as people, he was sitting in the jail with a little calf who was crying, but he was saying Mishnayos, and he wasn't scared because he knew that Hashem was watching over him. And that's another lesson that we learn from what the Frierdiker Rebbe was raised upon. But the idea that he put his money to make a gemach as a little child, we're not talking to you about like a 20-year-old. We're talking about a very little child that made a gemach to help other Yidden. And this idea is because this is what he saw from his father. This is what he saw from the Rebbe Rashab. And it's very, very beautiful. Now, there's a very beautiful story that's also pretty much a well-known story, but not everybody knows this story. And there's a lot of elements in this story as well. So when the Rebbe Rashab, Rabbi Shalom Dover, and his brother were little, the Raza, his older brother, they were playing. And what did they see at home? They saw their father, the Rebbe Maharash, bringing people for Yechidus. He was the Rebbe. So in the house of the Rebbe, you see Hasidim coming in and coming out and talking to the Rebbe and asking for advice. So what would they play? They played Hasidim and Rebbe. So when they were playing one day, the Rebbe Rashab says, I don't want to be the Rebbe. I'm going to be the Chassid. And what was his explanation? He says, there's only one God. There's only one Rebbe. There's a lot of Chassidim. I want to be a Chassid. So he's the Chassid, and the Raza, his older brother, his was the Rebbe. So they're playing, and he's telling him, the Rebbe Rashab, as a child, he's telling his brother, what? No, so he told him that he told him a lot of things, and he told him if you, yeah, it was like a very so they had a lot of scenarios. So in the book they bring this example of, he's telling him, what if you touch fire? Like if you touch fire, so his brother answers him, when a fire touches fire, nothing happens to it. It'll only burn when it touches something that's not fire. But the main thing about the story that I wanted to point out is that he tells him that he did something wrong on Shabbos. And he tells him, what is my tikkun for this, for like peeling nuts or something? So he tells him, you have to read this blessing, and you have to read it every Friday. And then his mother sees that he doesn't follow the directions of his brother, like a few days later. And she's coming to him and she's telling him, I noticed that you're not doing what your brother told you, and he was supposed to be like the Rebbe in your game. So why are you not listening to him? So he's telling him, he didn't, he told him like the word, he didn't krach, he didn't sigh. And he said a Rebbe sighs. That's the answer first. You have to sigh. As a child, the Rebbe Rashab understood that a Rebbe first emphasizes with his Hasidim. He feels the pain with them. He understands the pain first. And only when you can understand somebody's pain, you can come from that point and give them help and offer them help. It's the same idea as children trusting you. If you want the children to listen to you, they need to feel that they could trust you, that you emphasize with them, that you understand them, that you care about their problems.
So overwhelmed I have no time.
But I'll give you something. I'll give you an advice. You won't be as overwhelmed when the kids become your partners. Do you understand? Like you don't have to control them. You're all in one boat. Do you understand? This is how I, sometimes I in my Shabbos classes, the biggest example for that I have sometimes 10 kids and sometimes 15 kids, sometimes 20 kids, and they're all different ages. Now you can either look at it and say, how am I controlling this? But I'm not looking at it from a point of control. How can I control this? I'm not getting nervous from this. They are with me. We are a team. And I look at them at the same level. So the Rebbe Rashab understood this from a very young age, where he understood this idea of you having to be in the level of the Hasidim, understand them. How can you give them, just like being a lamplighter, you can't give somebody light if you don't understand where they're coming from. I'm going to give you a simple example from my life. If I have not gone through the things I've gone through, I would not be able to be in the places where I am. I've went through a lot of pain and hardships. and being alone and having no money and having money and having a job and not having a job. And I tried many, many different things. And I found myself having everything. And some days I found myself having nothing. And only because of that, I'm able to do some of the things that I'm doing. And only because of that, some of the advice that I can give people will be accepted because they know I understand. They've seen me go through different things, and I can give real examples. So when you want to help someone, and the Rebbeim taught us that you need to have that compassion, that understanding to what the person is going through. And if you can't, then you have to try to be in their shoes in order to give advice. You know, you can't, it's not going to work. They're not going to be able, it's not going to be momayim apanim lapanim if you don't bring yourself to that level to see where they're coming from.
So you also can't even have them.
Yeah.
But I have a question. What if, like, let's say, example, I don't know if your kids ever, you know? So, like, Shabbos, you can't teach anything because they're so off the wall. So what do you do?
So it happens to me. So you know what I do? So I have a backup plan. I asked myself one time, I was in the beginning, I was like, no, I want them to learn, it's Shabbos. And then I said, wait, I asked myself, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? I said, because I wanted to have the love for Hashem. I asked myself these questions. I wanted that. I said, okay, so they only have the love for Hashem if they learned halacha and the parsha. They cannot have love for Hashem in any other way. So then when I saw that, I said, you know what, wait. So I also have cards of the Rebbe, a lot of cards of different pictures of the Rebbe. And when we have a game, they all love it. Yeah, it's a game. I made it into a game. It wasn't a game. It's not a game. It's a collection of pictures of the Rebbe doing different things, putting tefillin, holding the Torah, shaking the lulav, and all kind of stuff. And I turn it over and I flip them and we're like, I mix them together and I say, okay, everyone gets one, including me. And sometimes I have even ladies sitting on the side also wanting to be in the game because it's so interesting. Each child takes one and they don't turn it over. And then I go one by one, they show us the picture and say, what do you think the Rebbe is telling you now? And each one of them has like, oh, the Rebbe sees I daven today. Oh, the Rebbe sees that I that I love the Torah. And sometimes I get something and say, what do you think the Rebbe is telling more Sheli? And they love this, And then sometimes I also have this thing that I give them a book with different like faces and pictures and say, how do you feel today? And we talk about their feelings today and we connected. Yeah. They learn to listen to each other. And sometimes I give them work in groups. Or sometimes I give them a story and I tell them a few of you are going to act it out and a few of us are going to have a discussion. And I don't do what I plan to do, but I do something with them that shows them that loving Hashem and loving and having Ahavat Yisroel and having Shabbos in our lives can also be fun. It could also be filling their what their heart needs at that moment. It's not only about halacha and parsha. It is very much about it, and I connected to it in a different way, in a way that they can connect to that day.
It's so creative.
But you know what? I wasn't like this. If I came to America, I wanted to be a doctor. Then a year later, I had a coffee shop. I was making coffee. And when I opened the Igros of the Rebbe, when I had the coffee shop and I was in debt and I was asking, what should I do? And the Rebbe says, oh, thank you for your work in chinuch. I'm like, what chinuch? Me and chinuch don't go together. I didn't know all these things. And you know what? I learn every day. I learn something new. All these things I'm telling you, I didn't learn so long ago. I made mistakes. And as I was making mistakes, I realized that something works. I said, oh, so next time, and also personal growth. This is what I learned from the Rebbe Rashab reading about him, that he didn't just he wasn't just, yes, he had the sensitivity as he was born with it, but he worked on it. So when I come back from a Shabbos class and it didn't work out well and the kids really made a mess I sit down and think about it. I said, what can I do different? And then I write a letter to the Rebbe. I said, Rebbe, help me. You gave this to me and I don't know what to do with it. And it helps.
Help me, like with students going crazy.
The Rebbe says, report to me good things, not just bad things. So I report to him the good things and the things I'm struggling with. The other day we were in 770 and we opened a letter from the Rebbe and the Rebbe asked, do you tell people that there's a Rebbe in Am Yisrael? The people can write to the Rebbe? How many people did you add this year? So if we want other people to write to the Rebbe, we should also write to the Rebbe. You should know that all these great jobs that we have in chinuch, who sent us? Report to who sent you. I talk to Hashem and I say all these things. You know, it was very beautiful when the Rebbe Rashab was little. His siblings, his sister Dvorah Leah came to him one day and she was bothering him. He was like 7 years old, and she's like, "Come play with me, come play with me." Yeah. He says, "Come play with me," and he says, "Leave me alone." He says, you have to be serious. A Jewish person cannot just waste their time. You have to have Kabbalah soul. And this is how he was as a child. You know, can you imagine? Also, his father passed away at a very young age. So he was 21 when his father passed away, and he was really tremendously devastated. It was very hard for him. His father was everything to him. He was his father, he was his Rebbe, he was everything. He closed himself in his office and he only opened the door for davening times where the Hasidim would come, they would daven, and then he would close the door back. He didn't accept being a Rebbe until he was about 33. Yeah. And you know, the many Hasidim went off the Hasidus because of that, because there was no Rebbe at that time. He was not. Yeah. He was giving here and there. Later on, after like the first 7 years, he started to give a little bit of talks. No, there was there were little like kind of competitors, but it wasn't from their family. It was like different family members that had. Yeah. So they didn't have a Rebbe at that time, and many Hasidim went off the Hasidus because of that, because there was nothing holding them. There were no Yechidus. They were here and there, but very little. And it wasn't because he did it on purpose. He just like, it was a very, very, he did a lot of work on himself. And then once he became the Rebbe, Like, there was no going back. He took on the role, and he really, it's amazing. He was also very sick. So with being sick, he was still doing all this work, and it's really amazing. Can you imagine like how much more he could have done if he wasn't sick? It was amazing.
Yeah, of course.
And the Frierdiker Rebbe, right? His only son, the Frierdiker Rebbe, was raised on these values. So from a very young age, the Frierdiker Rebbe was already helping him in his work. And he got married very young, and he was officially helping him. The Rebbe Rashab, he was like, I think it was like 17. He was young. They got married all very young at that time.
And
Even
gave him a dream. No, I'm serious about becoming a Rebbe.
There was a reason for that. We don't question that, because there was. When I read it initially, I said, what? I said, no, it can't be, because he saw his father. He was with his father, so it can't be. There was a reason for that. He was probably learning something. He was preparing himself for being the Rebbe. It was, and also, like, you know, when the Rebbe said that sometimes when you don't see something, you need it even more, and you're connected to it even more. There's something there that you know, it's a very deep concept. I don't know exactly, you know, there's more to say about it. There's also a very beautiful story that I couldn't really find the source of, but I read it years ago, that the Rebbe Rashab once also took the Frierdiker Rebbe, and they went to another town, and they took a hotel there, and he saw his father, like, he told him to buy, to order dresses, to get all this stuff ready for like girls' things, and he didn't understand. And then he found out later on that his father was preparing a lecha, like to do a shidduch for a young girl that her father was not around, and he knew about it, and he wanted to make sure that the girls in that family get married. And he went, and he didn't have even the money to do that. I think he even sold his cane or something like that to get the money for it. And that's how they got the money. They had to stay in this like expensive place, and he really like took care of this family. And
They all got married right away.
Yeah, he did the shidduch, he arranged for it. Yeah.
And then once they found out that the other
Yeah, he opened the path for them again. He gave the blessing that they should go fast, and that whole family was set off. But I'm just saying, this is the Avat Yisrael that the Rebbe Rashab had, and I think this is remarkable, because today is the day that we really need to tap to that. What can we do? You know, the idea is that not just hearing about these ideas. What can we really do in our lives, in our classrooms, that we can enhance this idea of Ahavat Yisrael. Because like we said, the Rebbe Rashab opened that path for us, that it should be easy for us to do. That it should come to us in a natural way, because you already paved the path for that. So think about it. Like, it's a very, I started to think about it also. By the way, there's a very cute book for kids called What It Means to Be a Chassid, right? And you can introduce it to the kids and talk to them about it, what it means to be a chassid. Not just a lamplighter, and give them projects about it. Make it real for them in their everyday life. Ask them, what do you do at home? How can you, how can you? Yeah, it's Shalom Zimmerman, and I'll pass it around. That you could the pictures are amazing, and the ideas, they're short and they're straight into the point. And you can also add your own, ask the kids what else and what other ways they can be a chassid, and to bring it down to the girls also, like, how can the girls do the same? How could the girls feel like they are serving Hashem? How can they feel like they're doing Ahavat Yisrael? And there's so many beautiful examples. You don't have to read it in a book. It'd be your own examples. Anybody wants to share something, what they feel about it, like?
Sorry. The water.
She just wants advice about how to teach.
Can you remind me about the water? What you said. The desert was someone who doesn't have fire.
So the water, the Rebbe explains it so nicely. If you want, I'll share the video with you, because the Rebbe explains it so beautifully. He's saying the water, like when the chassid told him, but what if you have to light, the lamp is in the sea. So he tells him, take off your garments and go into the sea. Now, what is the sea? It's somebody that has Torah knowledge. He knows everything. He knows the halachas. He knows everything in the Torah. He'll quote to you and he'll argue with you. Why do I have to do this? And say, if you're going to come to him with your Torah knowledge, you're not going to get far. He said, you have to take off your garments. What is our garments? Our pride, our knowledge, everything we are. And just leave your neshama there. And you have to connect from the level of the neshama, of the person. You have to look at the person. What matters to them? What else do they like? What do they like to eat? What do they like to drink? What do they like to hear?
But how will that bring them closer?
Because you know what? For example, I have a friend. She doesn't like when I lecture her. So I said, okay, Sheli, try a different approach. She likes kid stories. So I tried to prove a point to her. And I said, if I'm going to try to say it, she's not going to want to hear me. So I told her a kid story and she liked it. And I said to myself, no, just a kid story, like about, it was about one of the Rebbe. And I said to myself, you see, Sheli, because I was trying to also understand for myself, how do you approach a person that knows so much? He knows so much, so bright. And I just couldn't. And I said, you know what I thought to myself, what does it mean to take off your garments? And I realized that it's just connecting to the person in the level that they won't have resistance against you. And that's what it means to take off your garments, to take off everything that you know as your reality and dive into the other person's reality. And it's a hard job. It's not easy. The Rebbeim taught us that it's not easy, and how the Rebbe showed us that how much that, even like children, that it's hard for them to do certain things. The Rebbe said these are special children, because one thing they cannot do, but something else is enhanced by them. And that you have to look at that. So we have to look at, even if the person doesn't want to do one thing, but still they have something else that they're great in. And you need to show them how that greatness in them connects to Hashem. And that's the beauty of Ahavat Yisrael, that everyone must understand that they are special in Hashem's eyes. We are all equal. That's a very, very important point that I myself decided to work on when I read some of these stories. It said here that also that Rebbetzin Rivka realized how special her son was through seeing him do his work. There was one time that they explained that he was very, very weak, and his melamed came to the Rebbe Marash and he said, look, your son is very, very tired when I'm teaching him. He's putting a lot of effort in tefillah. And the Rebbe Marash went went to his son when he was davening, and he saw that he was like so engrossed in the tefillah, and it was taking so much energy from him that by the time he finished davening, he had no energy. It was taking a lot of physical energy from him. And when his father looked at him, and he put his he went away, and he went to his wife, and he said, I can't bother in the middle of tefillah. You should see how he is davening. He said, how can I deprive him of that connection with Hashem? And how can I deprive Hashem of that connection that he's getting from him, that devotion? And this is how the Rebbe Rashab lived his life, by showing us an example of how you need to be. Everything he told others to do, he practiced on himself first. Yeshivat Tomchet Mimim that he opened, what was the idea? The idea was Avat Yisrael. How did it come about? That the Hasidim that are going to the yeshiva should not worry about board and food. They will have a place to sleep. They will have a place to eat. And he fundraised for it. And this way they can learn Torah and serve Hashem with no worries. That's not Avat Yisrael. That's the biggest Avat Yisrael. And what are we living upon today? What is Jewish education based upon today? This kind of work, the work of the Frierdiker Rebbe, based on what he saw in Yeshivat Tomchet Mimim, and the whole Jewish education institution built by the Rebbe Rashab, by the Frierdiker Rebbe, and continued by our Rebbe, is based on these values of Ahavat Yisrael, Ahavat Hashem, Ahavat Torah, Ahavat Yisrael. And this is the biggest nachas we can give Hashem. When we engage in Ahavat Yisrael, that everything that we do, the initial motivation for it is Ahavat Yisrael. And it's something that we each can work on, because the Rebbe Rashab opened that path for us. And each one of you are in a different setting every day in your daily life. It doesn't have to be only in chinuch. Wherever you are, think how you can tap to Ahavat Yisrael and enhance it in your setting.
Can I say something?
Yeah, for sure.
I know that like people might focus on like speech and action in Ahavas Yisrael, but we know that like obviously Tanya teaches us that we're supposed to have control, and we're able to have control over our thoughts, speech, and action. And I've noticed within myself that like when I like, let's say somebody annoys me, or I have a judgmental thought about somebody, somebody annoying me. Like, even meaning in speech and in action, I could act professionally, and you won't even know that like I'm feeling this frustration. But internally, I also have to choose. I'm gonna have Ahavas Yisrael internally, and like try and be down the custos. I try to understand where they're coming from. And when you try to like access these things from a place of thought, then by the time you get to speech and action, it's not even fake, it's actually real. I think that's just an interesting thing to keep in mind, is that Ahavas Yisrael can also be in thought, and I think that's where it starts.
Yes, for sure.
The biggest struggle.
And it's also, like, when we notice something that's bothering us, it could be something unresolved that we're struggling with in ourselves. And once we resolve it with ourselves, we're not as upset when we see it by someone else, and we're more tolerant to it.
Sure.
So it is a lot of work. It's not all these concepts that I'm telling you about require a lot of work. And what the beautiful thing is about the Rebbe Rashab, that it wasn't like I'm just, we just have stories about him. We have so much understanding about his life and struggles through the Frierdiker Rebbe, because he shared a lot of his father's stories, and he shared his struggles. The Rebbe Rashab is maybe one of the only Rebbeim that we have so much of an internal struggle put down on paper. He went through so much pain within himself to work on himself. He had a very high wrath for himself from a very young age. I'm talking to you about a little child that when he embarrassed the tailor, He took it with him for like a few weeks until he asked his father. And even then he didn't tell his father, who he loved tremendously, what happened not to do Lashon Hara. That's the sensitivity, and he worked on it. It was a deep thing. It means that we can also work on it. And when we get upset at ourselves for not behaving right or not doing the right thing, just go home and think about it and work on it and see how you can change it for next time. And it's okay to also apologize and make it work and give advice, from your own experience to other people when you see them struggling with these things. Can you imagine if we all worked on Ahavas Yisrael a little bit, just a notch more than we do now? What kind of beautiful outcome that would be? It's amazing. We will bring so much nachas to the Rebbe, to the Rebbeim, and to Hashem. And we will definitely bring Mashiach.
Amen.
So really, that's really what I wanted us to get out with today. This to think about Ahavat Yisrael and how we can enhance it. And I really, by the way, Rabbi Paltiel has very beautiful talks about the Rebbe Rashab. A few of them throughout the years that he put out, and they're amazing. I really recommend to listen. And Rabbi Goldstein also has a few series of lectures that he recorded talking about the Rebbe Rashab and the Frierdiker Rebbe, and very, very beautiful stories. I really urge you to listen to all these things, because when I listen to something, I listen to it 2 or 3 times. And then I realize things that I didn't listen to the first time. Sometimes we're distracted, sometimes we're multitasking, and it's very profound, and it really can make a big change for you, especially if you're working in chinuch. And working in chinuch, we always have to be an example, and we make mistakes too. So it's like the more you work on yourself, the more you can transfer to others, not just at school, anywhere,
Funny today, he was looking at him like, "What's my God thinks she might be nice?" And she's like, "Mommy, not religious." And I'm like, "Are you Jewish?" The whole time, I was like, "How do I answer the kid? How do I answer the kid?"
Well, usually the most religious kid.
I tell you what, how you answered the fact that it's bothering her that she's not religious means that she cares about us.
It's bothering me. That I'm like, it's not about being religious. I'm like, it's about you being Jewish. You're doing it because you're a Jew. And it was so hard the whole time. Like I was like trying to figure out my entire life.
You don't have to. You just tell them. You are connected to Hashem naturally. There's nothing you can do. Your neshama is yes. If you want, I'll come one time and I'll be a guest speaker and I'll tell them I don't care. I'll come. Yeah, that's what I do. What do you think? My friends sometimes complain that they're having a hard time. I said, okay, I'm coming to help. And then I go for one time and I give them a different outlook on this thing that they're struggling with, and it really works.
What did you say that Hashem wants to connect?
You have it. He said, you tell them like this: Hashem gave you a piece of Him. It's inside of you. You're neshama, so you don't have to do anything. You already have a piece of Hashem inside of you. You are connected to Hashem. You don't have to do anything for it. If you do a little bit, you're going to feel very happy about it, because that piece of you that's connected to Hashem is going to feel alive. It's just like when you press a button and the light goes on, And then bring them something that they all have something lighting. Then when they go home and they go to sleep and they see that thing lighting in their room, they're like, Hashem is in me, like that. Give everything a physical presentation, like that they can connect it to something real. I don't know. This is something that's really bemet. It's in my heart. I don't know. I was not raised for chinuch. I did not come up from a family of chinuch. I came from a background of medical. Everyone in my family was like not in chinuch. They're in medical. So I don't know. It's from Hashem, and I'm very, very grateful for it. Yeah. But again, I told you, anyone can be in this level. I learn every single day. I open the books. I read with the Rebbe. I look at the Rebbe's letters. I look at the Rebbe's sichas. I just read and look and I see and I say, try to apply it. And then every time I have a problem, and I also I daven to Hashem to help me, because this is not something that one person can do. I daven to Hashem to go with me and to help me and to be able to have to be able to see these things and to be able to find solutions for them. And when you're opening to learning and you're asking Hashem to go with you and to give you the bracha, you will be able to get to places that you can't even I cannot imagine that I'm the person I am today. 10 years ago, I could never see myself doing this. Bemet, and it's amazing. Just take one step at a time. Okay, that's it. Just take one step at a time. You know, the Rebbe once, somebody, I think it was Rabbi Krinsky, the Rebbe gave him something to do, and he said that it was like, it's too hard, it's impossible, or something like. He told him it's like. So the Rebbe said to him, just read one sentence at a time. That's it. What does that mean? Don't. The Rebbeim lift us. Hashem lifts us. He brings us there. We just have to be ready and willing. So what I do is I'm like, I'm ready and willing. You do. I want to be a vessel. Take this vessel to wherever you want, Hashem. I'm willing to do it. And that's it. And you find yourself there. And I'm very serious. If you want, I'll come one time and I'll see what you're struggling with, and then maybe we'll find a solution together. You know? Anybody else wants to share?
This has been like 2 days into here. It's like, should maybe have more. I'm talking for someone else. Maybe would have more specific examples, but like when it's right after me, it's just overwhelming. Like everything is overwhelming, you know.
Maybe plan less to do during the day, like less to teach.
Oh, don't worry, I
Always
teach
supposed to
nothing. It's an hour and a half an hour is drawing, the other half hour, 15 minutes is learning, the other half hour, 50 minutes, all right, decorating Mezuzah cases. Hopefully don't the Mezuzahs die. And then when I tell them that they answer this, the schools offer between Mezuzahs, and like I do, all you have to do is like it's a one mitzvah or that word campaign, you're gonna get a free Mezuzah. Like, it's okay, we already have one. Like, you have one on every single story. You remember the story I just told you about. I wasn't.
Bella, are you excited about the story? Does the story excite you? Think about it. If you were a kid and you're telling this to your, does that story excite you? Do you say it with excitement?
Of course.
Yeah?
I say it with excitement. I'm hoping I'll enter it.
It does. Everything you do.
You're not religious.
Azorim b'dim'a berina iktzor. The Rebbe promised. Azorim b'dim'a berina iktzor. You will see the fruits. Don't worry. Yeah.
Someone wants to hear more about how you said that the Rashab opened the path. Rashab access them to the day now.
Did they miss the beginning, or they went the
They're not here.
Oh. So I don't know. Okay, so basically we spoke about the path that the Rebbe Rashab opened for us. And I shared the story that when the Rebbe Rashab was little, there was a situation where his mother ordered something from a tailor. It says here something, battery low, maybe? Yeah. So the Rebbe Rashab, so the story of the tailor was that the tailor kept some of the so it was in his pocket, and when the Rebbe Rashab took it out of his pocket, he embarrassed him. So his mother pointed out to him that you need to be careful not to embarrass another Jew.
But the other Rebbe also has sensitivity. Why is it like
he had it? Because they all had sensitivity, but he had it at such a young age. We're talking about a very, very small child that cried hysterically and suffered for weeks inside himself and didn't go to his father to share this story and to what to do. He thought about it, then he went to his father, how can I do a tikkun for this? And he was so careful how to ask for it, so he shouldn't also say Lashon Hara. So it was such a profound thing. Like ask a child to just to even test it out. Ask a child, like if you ask a child, like, did you notice like this person got embarrassed? If they're not trained, it's easier for us to teach children that sensitivity and Ahavat Yisrael. So let's just say if a child, I'm happy that we're talking about it, because that's important for chinuch. The kids are able to grasp it, but you need to like explain it to them. Today they will understand it. Whereas before the Rebbe Rashab, it might be hard for them to understand this concept of I embarrassed someone else. Today, very little kids can understand this concept that we're not embarrassing someone else. You cause them to be upset right now. We have to be very careful. They'll understand it. And the concept of Ahavat Yisrael is much easier to be taught, to teach today than it was before this scenario that the Rebbe Rashab had.
Thank you.
And all the stories, we should know that it's a very big example for us, that all the stories that the Rebbeim, there's a reason why the Frierdiker Rebbe chose certain stories about his father. and our Rebbe, certain stories that he shared to make a certain point that we know that there's a new path now because this happened. And we need to follow that, and also this idea with the same thing with the chinuch that kids need less of like physical rewards, and they just want the godliness became the reward. Like, wow, Beit HaMikdash, wow, Hashem, wow, I did a mitzvah. That's their reward.
Also that Bela, when it comes to your Hebrew school,
We'll take the recording so I remember everything I said. Everyone, thank you for joining us. It was amazing. And Bezrat Hashem, until next time. See you in Beit HaMikdash. Mashiach now. Oh, don't forget, we need to do a doch to the Rebbe. We should write our names. We have a pen. You could do it on the back of this if you want. Okay, do it on the back of this, and I'll share this with the Rebbe here. I'll just keep a space in the... Uh-oh, selfie.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll take a selfie. One tradition is a selfie, another tradition is a gift.
Yeah. I love new books.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. You're amazing. Thank you. Okay, I got a gift. Now I have to read it. Our next Farbrengen.
Exactly. Thank you everyone for joining. Oh, hi, Connie. Any? Nope. No comments or questions. Hi, Connie and Yehudas and Rivka and Shterna. Okay, good night, everybody.